There's a wound that many carry, yet few acknowledge. A wound that doesn't bleed but aches in silence. A wound that is invisible to the world but painfully real to the one who bears it. Men are often told to be strong, to endure, to keep moving forward no matter what. But in this pursuit of strength, we sometimes neglect the very pain that shapes us. We bottle it up. We hide it. We ignore it, until it starts defining us in ways we don't even realize. Today, I want to break that silence. I want to talk about the hidden wound no man talks about. The emotional, psychological, and unseen struggles that we often suppress. And more importantly, I want to show you that true strength isn't about hiding pain. It's about facing it, healing from it, and growing beyond it. So let's take this journey together. It's time to speak up, to heal, and to redefine what strength really means. From a young age, men are conditioned to believe that strength is synonymous with silence, that endurance is the ultimate marker of masculinity. Society has crafted an image where vulnerability is seen as weakness, and emotions, especially those that reveal pain, are best left unspoken. This conditioning starts early with phrases like "boys don't cry" and "man up," echoing through childhood. These words, though seemingly harmless, plant the seeds of emotional suppression, creating wounds that remain hidden beneath the surface. The hidden wound is not a physical one. It does not leave visible scars, nor does it demand immediate attention. Instead, it lingers quietly, growing deeper with time. It manifests in moments of self-doubt, in silent battles fought in the mind, and in the overwhelming burden of unresolved emotions. The problem is that most men do not even realize they are carrying this wound because they have been taught to ignore it, to push it down, to pretend it does not exist. One of the greatest obstacles to acknowledging this wound is the societal expectation of toughness. Men are often expected to be providers, protectors, and pillars of strength. While these roles can be noble, they can also become burdensome when they come at the cost of emotional well-being. Many men feel pressured to hide their struggles, believing that admitting pain is a sign of failure. This creates a dangerous cycle where emotional pain is buried rather than addressed, leading to long-term consequences on mental health, relationships, and overall well-being. For some, this hidden wound is rooted in childhood experiences. It could stem from an absent or emotionally distant father, a toxic upbringing where showing emotions was discouraged, or experiences of bullying that left deep psychological scars. These early wounds shape how a man views himself and the world around him. If a boy grows up believing that expressing emotions makes him weak, he will likely carry that belief into adulthood, struggling to articulate his feelings even in situations that demand vulnerability. Others may carry wounds from adulthood, failed relationships, career setbacks, personal losses, or the pressure of expectations that feel impossible to meet. These experiences add layers to the wound, reinforcing the idea that emotions should be hidden rather than processed. A man who has faced heartbreak may suppress his pain, convincing himself that moving on without addressing his feelings is the only way to prove his resilience. A man who struggles with financial pressures may bottle up his stress, refusing to seek help because he believes he must handle everything alone. The consequences of ignoring this wound are far-reaching. Suppressed emotions do not disappear. They manifest in different ways: anger, frustration, anxiety, or even physical health issues. Many men find themselves lashing out over minor inconveniences, not because of the situation at hand, but because of the accumulated pain they have never confronted. Others may withdraw, isolating themselves from friends and family, unable to form meaningful connections because they have built walls too high to be breached. This hidden wound also affects personal relationships. When a man is unable to acknowledge his own pain, he struggles to communicate effectively with those around him. Partners may feel shut out, unable to understand what is going on beneath the surface. Friendships may suffer as emotional distance grows. Children may grow up with emotionally unavailable fathers who, despite their best efforts, struggle to express love and vulnerability. The cycle continues, passing from one generation to the next. In many cases, the fear of judgment prevents men from addressing their wounds. They worry about being perceived as weak or incapable, especially in environments where traditional masculinity dominates. Workplaces, social circles, and even family dynamics often reinforce the idea that emotions should be kept in check. This fear creates an invisible barrier, making it even harder for men to seek the help they need. Cultural expectations also play a role in this suppression. In many cultures, men are expected to be stoic, to endure hardships without complaint, and to never show signs of emotional distress. These expectations can make it nearly impossible for a man to acknowledge his pain, let alone talk about it. Even in modern times, where conversations around mental health are becoming more common, the stigma around male vulnerability remains deeply ingrained. The impact of this wound extends beyond the individual. When men suppress their emotions, it affects society as a whole. High rates of depression, substance abuse, and even suicide among men can often be traced back to unresolved emotional struggles. The inability to express pain leads many down a path of self-destruction, searching for coping mechanisms that only offer temporary relief rather than true healing. Despite all this, many men convince themselves that they are fine, that they can handle their struggles alone. They may distract themselves with work, hobbies, or other external pursuits, hoping that if they stay busy enough, the pain will fade. But no amount of distraction can truly heal an unacknowledged wound. The longer it remains buried, the more it festers, impacting every aspect of life. Recognizing this wound requires a deep sense of self-awareness, something that does not come easily when emotions have been suppressed for years. It takes courage to look inward, to acknowledge that pain exists, and to understand that it is not a sign of weakness, but a part of being human. Many men hesitate at this stage, unsure of what they might uncover or how to deal with the emotions that surface. Some may begin to notice their wound through recurring patterns in their lives. Perhaps they struggle with trust in relationships, or they find it difficult to express their feelings in moments that require openness. Others may realize that their emotional suppression has led to chronic stress, physical health issues, or an overall sense of dissatisfaction with life. These realizations can be painful, but they are necessary steps toward healing. The journey toward acknowledgement is different for every man. Some may find it through introspection, taking time to reflect on past experiences and how they have shaped their emotional state. Others may need external validation, conversations with close friends, therapy or support groups where they can hear stories similar to their own. The key is to create an environment where emotions can be expressed without fear of judgment. One of the most significant barriers to acknowledging this wound is the misconception that emotions make a man weak. In reality, the ability to confront emotions, to sit with discomfort, and to work through pain is one of the strongest things a person can do. It requires immense bravery to challenge societal norms, to break free from the conditioning of silence, and to embrace vulnerability as a form of strength. Many men struggle with the language of emotions, having spent their lives avoiding discussions around feelings. This lack of emotional literacy makes it difficult to articulate pain, leading to frustration and further suppression. Learning to name emotions, to understand where they come from, and to communicate them effectively is an essential step toward healing. For some, the process of acknowledgement may be met with resistance. The mind may instinctively push back, convincing itself that everything is fine, that there is no need to dig up old wounds. But healing cannot happen without acknowledgement. The weight of unspoken pain does not lighten on its own. It continues to grow until it demands attention in ways that can no longer be ignored. Many men fear that facing their pain will make them vulnerable to others, that admitting to emotional struggles will change the way they are perceived. But the truth is, vulnerability fosters connection. When one man opens up, it gives others permission to do the same. It creates a space where emotions are not shamed but understood, where healing becomes a shared experience rather than an isolated battle. While the journey toward acknowledgement is personal, it is also collective. Every man who confronts his hidden wound contributes to a shift in the narrative of masculinity. By challenging outdated beliefs and embracing emotional awareness, men can redefine what it means to be strong. The first step toward healing is not easy, but it is necessary. It begins with a simple yet profound act, acknowledging that the wound exists. Silence has long been a defining trait of masculinity. From childhood, boys are taught that speaking about their emotions is unnecessary, even shameful. They learn to mask their pain, to keep their struggles hidden, and to present an image of strength at all times. This conditioning follows them into adulthood, creating an internal prison where pain is locked away, unspoken and unresolved. The idea that men should suffer in silence is deeply ingrained in cultures around the world, reinforced by generational beliefs, societal norms, and even the media. The problem with silence is that it does not erase pain, it only buries it deeper. When men avoid expressing their emotions, those feelings do not disappear. They fester, manifesting in different ways: stress, anxiety, anger, withdrawal, and even physical ailments. The longer these emotions remain unspoken, the more powerful they become, shaping a man's identity and affecting his relationships, career, and mental health. The weight of unexpressed pain can lead to a profound sense of loneliness, even when surrounded by others. Breaking the silence is one of the most challenging yet necessary steps toward healing. It requires a shift in mindset, a willingness to challenge the beliefs that have been instilled since childhood. Many men fear that opening up will make them appear weak or incapable. They worry that sharing their struggles will change how others perceive them, leading to judgment or rejection. This fear keeps them trapped in a cycle of quiet suffering, convincing themselves that staying silent is the better option. The stigma surrounding male vulnerability is one of the main barriers to breaking the silence. From an early age, boys who express sadness or fear are often met with ridicule. They may be told to toughen up, to stop being so sensitive, or to be a man. These phrases, though often said casually, send a powerful message. Emotions are not meant to be shared. This conditioning leads men to believe that they must handle everything alone, that asking for help is a sign of failure. In many cases, the silence is reinforced by cultural expectations. In some societies, men are expected to be the unshakable foundation of their families and communities. They are taught that expressing emotions, especially those related to pain or doubt, is a betrayal of their role as providers and protectors. These expectations make it nearly impossible for men to admit when they are struggling, as doing so feels like a violation of the very identity they have been raised to embody. Even in personal relationships, silence often prevails. Many men find it difficult to open up to their partners, fearing that their vulnerability will be misunderstood or dismissed. They may struggle to put their emotions into words, having spent years suppressing them. Instead of verbalizing their struggles, they may withdraw, becoming distant and uncommunicative. This emotional distance can create fractures in relationships, leading to misunderstandings and resentment. Partners may feel shut out, unable to connect on a deeper level because the man they care about refuses to let them in. Friendships among men are often built around shared activities rather than deep emotional conversations. While these connections can be meaningful, they rarely provide a space for open dialogue about personal struggles. Many men feel that their friendships are not the right place to discuss emotions, fearing that doing so will disrupt the dynamic. As a result, they keep their struggles hidden, even from those closest to them. This lack of emotional expression can make it difficult for men to form truly supportive connections, leaving them feeling isolated even in the presence of friends. Breaking the silence requires an environment where men feel safe to express themselves without fear of judgment. This does not happen overnight, nor does it come naturally for many. It begins with small steps, choosing to share thoughts and emotions with a trusted friend, seeking out spaces where vulnerability is encouraged, or even writing down feelings as a way to process them. The act of verbalizing emotions, even in private, can be the first step toward breaking years of silence. For some men, therapy or counseling provides a crucial space for open dialogue. Speaking with a professional who is trained to listen without judgment can be an eye-opening experience. It allows men to express thoughts they have never verbalized before, to explore emotions they have spent years avoiding. Therapy also provides the tools needed to navigate these emotions, offering strategies for communication and self-reflection that may have never been taught. Despite the growing awareness of mental health, many men still hesitate to seek professional help, viewing it as unnecessary or even embarrassing. Overcoming this hesitation is a key step in breaking the cycle of silence. Workplaces can also play a role in either reinforcing or challenging the silence around male vulnerability. In many professional environments, emotions are seen as a liability. Men are expected to perform without showing signs of struggle, to handle stress without complaint. This expectation creates a culture where employees feel pressured to hide their emotions, fearing that admitting to mental or emotional challenges will be perceived as weakness. However, some organizations are beginning to recognize the importance of emotional well-being, introducing mental health initiatives and encouraging open conversations. These shifts, though slow, are crucial in creating a world where men feel supported in speaking about their struggles. Social media has also played a role in both reinforcing and challenging male silence. On one hand, curated images of success and strength can make men feel even more isolated in their struggles, believing they are the only ones who feel inadequate or lost. On the other hand, the rise of mental health awareness campaigns and personal stories shared online has created spaces where vulnerability is celebrated rather than shamed. Seeing other men open up about their experiences can be a powerful reminder that no one is truly alone in their struggles. Breaking the silence does not mean that every man must suddenly become an open book, sharing his deepest emotions with everyone he meets. It means recognizing that there is strength in vulnerability, that expressing emotions is not a sign of weakness, but of self-awareness and courage. It means creating spaces where men can talk about their struggles without fear of judgment, whether that is in friendships, relationships, or professional settings. It means challenging the outdated beliefs that have kept men silent for generations, replacing them with a new understanding of what it means to be strong. The fear of opening up is often rooted in the belief that no one will understand, that sharing struggles will only lead to rejection or dismissal. But when one man speaks up, it creates a ripple effect, giving others permission to do the same. Conversations that once felt impossible become easier, and the weight of silent suffering begins to lift. The act of breaking the silence is not just about individual healing, it is about shifting the culture of masculinity as a whole. The path to breaking the silence is different for every man. Some may start by confiding in a single person, testing the waters of vulnerability. Others may find solace in writing, in creative expression, in small acts of self-reflection. What matters is taking that first step, no matter how small. The more men choose to speak about their struggles, the more the stigma around male vulnerability begins to fade. Generations of conditioning will not be undone overnight, but every conversation, every moment of openness, and every act of emotional honesty contributes to change. The process of breaking the silence is not just about acknowledging pain, but about reclaiming control over one's own emotional well-being. The ability to express emotions freely is not a burden, but a gift. One that strengthens connections, deepens understanding, and ultimately leads to a more fulfilling and authentic life. Healing is often misunderstood as a passive process, something that happens over time without deliberate effort. Many men believe that if they simply keep moving forward, the pain they carry will eventually fade on its own. They convince themselves that burying emotions, staying busy, or distracting themselves with work, relationships, or hobbies will be enough to outrun the wounds they have accumulated. But true healing does not come from avoidance. It comes from strength, the strength to face pain, to process emotions, and to rebuild from within. Society has long equated strength with endurance. Men are told that to be strong means to push through difficulties without complaint, to bear the weight of struggles in silence. This definition of strength, however, is incomplete. Real strength is not about suppressing pain, but about confronting it. It is about having the courage to acknowledge emotional wounds and taking the necessary steps to heal from them. For many men, healing begins with unlearning deeply ingrained beliefs about masculinity and vulnerability. From an early age, boys are conditioned to believe that showing emotions is a weakness, that real men do not cry, and that asking for help is a sign of failure. These ideas shape how men respond to pain, leading them to internalize struggles rather than express them. Over time, this suppression creates emotional barriers that make healing more difficult. The first step toward true healing is recognizing that these beliefs are not truths, but learned behaviors, ones that can be challenged and replaced with healthier perspective. Pain that is left unaddressed does not simply disappear. It finds ways to manifest in daily life. Many men experience their unhealed wounds through anger, impatience, or an overwhelming sense of restlessness. They may struggle with forming meaningful relationships, unable to open up emotionally, even to those they care about most. Others turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms such as excessive drinking, overworking, or seeking validation through external achievements, all in an attempt to escape the discomfort of facing their own emotions. These patterns may temporarily numb the pain, but they do not resolve it. Healing requires going deeper, examining the root of the pain rather than just its symptoms. One of the most difficult aspects of healing is allowing oneself to feel emotions fully. Many men have spent years suppressing sadness, disappointment, or fear, believing that doing so makes them stronger. In reality, denying emotions only gives them more power. Acknowledging emotions, allowing oneself to feel without judgment, is a crucial step in the healing process. This does not mean dwelling on pain indefinitely, but rather giving it the space to be understood and processed. Emotions are not weaknesses, they are signals, guiding individuals toward the areas of life that need attention. Healing also requires self-compassion, something that many men struggle with. They may hold themselves to impossibly high standards, believing that they must always be in control, always be the ones others rely on, and never show signs of struggle. When they do fall short of these expectations, they may respond with self-criticism rather than kindness. This internal dialogue can be one of the greatest obstacles to healing. Learning to treat oneself with the same compassion and understanding that one would offer a friend is essential. Self-compassion is not self-pity. It is an acknowledgement that being human means experiencing pain, making mistakes, and needing time to heal. For some, healing requires revisiting the past, confronting painful experiences that have long been ignored. This process can be uncomfortable as it forces individuals to relive emotions they have tried to forget. But avoiding the past does not erase its impact. Unhealed wounds from childhood, past relationships, or traumatic experiences continue to influence present behavior, often in ways that are not immediately obvious. Revisiting these moments with a new perspective, whether through self-reflection, therapy, or deep conversations with trusted individuals, can provide the clarity needed to break free from their hold. Healing is not a linear process. There are days when progress feels tangible, when the weight of past pain feels lighter, and there are days when old wounds resurface, bringing back emotions that were thought to be resolved. Many men become frustrated with themselves during these setbacks, believing that they should be further along in their healing journey. However, setbacks are not signs of failure. They are part of the process. Each moment of struggle is an opportunity to practice resilience, to remind oneself that healing is not about erasing the past, but about learning how to carry it in a way that does not hinder growth. One of the most powerful tools in healing is communication. Speaking about struggles, whether with a friend, partner, therapist, or support group, can be transformative. Verbalizing emotions allows them to be externalized rather than kept locked inside, giving them less power. Many men resist this step, fearing that opening up will lead to judgment or rejection. But in reality, expressing emotions often leads to deeper connections, as it allows others to see and understand them more fully. Vulnerability creates space for genuine support and understanding, something that is often missing when emotions are kept hidden. Healing is also found in self-expression. For some, this may mean writing, putting thoughts and emotions onto paper as a way to make sense of them. For others, it may be through physical movements such as exercise or sports, using the body as an outlet for emotions that words cannot always capture. Creative outlets such as music, painting, or storytelling can also be powerful tools in processing emotion. What matters is finding a way to express what is felt rather than letting it remain trapped inside. Developing healthy coping mechanisms is an essential part of healing. Many men turn to unhealthy habits to deal with pain, numbing emotions with alcohol, avoiding difficult conversations, or isolating themselves from those who care. These methods may provide temporary relief, but often lead to greater struggles in the long run. Replacing these habits with positive coping strategies, such as meditation, journaling, spending time in nature, or engaging in meaningful activities, can make a significant difference. The goal is not to escape pain, but to learn how to navigate it in a way that leads to growth. Healing through strength means redefining what it means to be strong. Strength is not the absence of pain, but the willingness to face it. It is not about never struggling, but about having the resilience to keep moving forward. It is about recognizing that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to self-awareness and courage. The strongest individuals are not those who hide their wounds, but those who acknowledge them, learn from them, and use them as a foundation for growth. Surrounding oneself with supportive people is another crucial aspect of healing. Many men struggle in silence because they believe they have to go through it alone. However, true healing happens in connection. Finding individuals who encourage openness, who listen without judgment, and who provide a safe space for emotional expression can make all the difference. Building a strong support system is not about seeking validation, but about creating an environment where healing is possible. Forgiveness, both of oneself and others, is often a necessary step in healing. Many men carry guilt, regret, or resentment that weighs heavily on them. Holding on to these emotions can be exhausting, preventing true healing from taking place. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing past pain, but rather releasing its hold over the present. It is an act of self-liberation, allowing space for growth rather than being defined by past wounds. Healing is not about returning to who one was before pain occurred. It is about becoming stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. The process is not about erasing struggles, but about integrating them into a narrative of resilience. Every man carries wounds, But those wounds do not have to define him. They can become a source of wisdom, a reminder of strength, and a catalyst for deeper understanding. Healing is not a destination, but a continuous journey, one that requires courage, patience, and the belief that transformation is possible. Changing the narrative around masculinity is not just about breaking silence or healing wounds. It is about redefining what it means to be strong, to be a man, and to be human. For generations, men have been taught to conform to a rigid definition of masculinity, one that prioritizes toughness, emotional restraint, and self-reliance over vulnerability, connection, and emotional intelligence. These outdated ideals have shaped the way men interact with the world, the way they form relationships, and the way they handle their struggles. But change is possible, and it starts with challenging these deeply ingrained beliefs, rewriting the script on what it means to be a man. The traditional image of masculinity is one of dominance, power, and emotional detachment. Boys grow up hearing phrases like "man up," "real men don't cry," and "toughen up." These messages shape their understanding of themselves and their place in the world. They learn that expressing sadness, fear, or doubt is unacceptable, that showing vulnerability will make them appear weak. This conditioning follows them into adulthood, where they struggle to communicate their emotions, to ask for help, and to form deep emotional bonds. The pressure to uphold this version of masculinity can be suffocating, forcing men to suppress parts of themselves in order to fit into a mold that does not serve them. One of the most damaging aspects of this outdated narrative is the belief that strength means enduring everything alone. Many men are taught that independence is a virtue, that relying on others is a weakness. As a result, they hesitate to seek support even when they are struggling. They convince themselves that they must figure everything out on their own, that asking for help would be an admission of failure. This self-imposed isolation can lead to profound loneliness, making it even harder to navigate life's challenges. But true strength is not about isolation. It is about connection, about recognizing that no one has to carry their burdens alone. Redefining masculinity means expanding the definition of strength. Strength is not just about physical toughness or the ability to endure hardship without complaint. It is also about emotional resilience, the willingness to be vulnerable, and the courage to confront one's own struggles. It takes strength to express emotions, to admit when something is wrong, and to seek help when needed. It takes strength to challenge societal norms, to break free from outdated expectations, and to embrace a more authentic version of oneself. One of the most powerful ways to change the narrative is through representation. The media has long portrayed men in a specific way: stoic, emotionless, always in control. In movies, television, and even advertising, men are often depicted as the strong, silent type, reinforcing the idea that emotions are unmasculine. However, representation is slowly evolving. More stories are being told that showcase the complexity of masculinity, that highlight men who are vulnerable, who struggle, who seek support, and who redefine what it means to be strong. These shifts in representation are essential because they show that there is no single way to be a man, that masculinity is not a rigid set of rules but a spectrum of experiences. Conversations about mental health are also playing a crucial role in reshaping masculinity. For years, mental health was a topic that men avoided, fearing the stigma associated with it. But as awareness grows, more men are beginning to speak openly about their experiences with depression, anxiety, and emotional struggles. Athletes, actors, and public figures are using their platforms to discuss their mental health journeys, breaking down the barriers that once prevented men from seeking help. These conversations normalize vulnerability, showing that acknowledging struggles is not a sign of weakness, but of self-awareness and strength. In relationships, changing the narrative means encouraging open communication and emotional expression. Many men struggle to articulate their feelings, not because they lack emotions, but because they were never taught how to express them. They may struggle to be emotionally available to their partners, to share their fears, their insecurities, or their pain. This emotional distance can create barriers in relationships, making it difficult to form deep, meaningful connection. But when men are given the space to express themselves without fear of judgment, they can begin to build healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Fatherhood is another area where the narrative around masculinity is shifting. In the past, fathers were often seen as distant authority figures, responsible for discipline and financial provision, but not for emotional support. Today, more men are embracing a different approach to fatherhood, one that prioritizes emotional connection, active involvement, and open communication. Fathers who show their children that it is okay to express emotions, that vulnerability is not a weakness, and that strength comes in many forms, are helping to raise a new generation of boys who will not be confined by outdated ideas of masculinity. The workplace is another space where traditional masculinity has long dictated behavior. Many professional environments reinforce the idea that emotions should be left at the door, that vulnerability has no place in leadership, and that success requires constant competition and toughness. However, the workplace culture is evolving, with more organizations recognizing the value of emotional intelligence, teamwork, and open dialogue. Leaders who model vulnerability, who admit when they don't have all the answers, who ask for help, who create environments where employees feel safe expressing their challenges, are reshaping what it means to be strong in a professional setting. Changing the narrative also means acknowledging that masculinity is not a monolith. There is no single way to be a man, and different cultures, backgrounds, and personal experiences shape how masculinity is expressed. What matters is allowing space for men to define masculinity for themselves rather than forcing them to fit into a narrow definition. Some men may find strength in being caretakers, others in being providers, others in their creativity, empathy, or ability to uplift those around them. Masculinity should not be about restriction, but about possibility. The possibility to be strong and sensitive, independent and connected, confident and vulnerable. Education plays a crucial role in redefining masculinity for future generations. Schools, families, and communities have a responsibility to teach boys that emotions are natural, that seeking support is not a weakness, and that strength comes in many forms. Instead of reinforcing harmful stereotypes, they can create environments where boys feel safe expressing themselves, where they learn the value of empathy, communication, and self-awareness. When boys grow up knowing that their worth is not defined by how well they suppress their emotions, they become men who are capable of forming healthy relationships, navigating challenges with resilience, and leading with authenticity. Social support systems are vital in this shift. Friendships between men often revolve around shared activities rather than emotional conversations. While these bonds are important, they should not be the only way men connect. Encouraging deeper conversations among male friends, creating spaces where men can talk openly about their struggles without fear of judgment, and fostering communities that prioritize emotional well-being can make a significant difference. When men support each other in embracing vulnerability, it creates a ripple effect, challenging the norms that have kept them silent for so long. Changing the narrative around masculinity is about giving men permission to be their full, authentic selves. It is about rejecting the outdated belief that emotions are a weakness and replacing it with the understanding that emotional awareness is a strength. It is about creating a world where men do not feel the need to suffer in silence, where they can ask for help without shame, and where they are valued for who they are rather than how well they fit into an outdated ideal. It is a movement that requires collective effort, one that will not be accomplished overnight, but will be built through conversations, representation, education, and support.